Well, guys, it's time for another update on the Super Glide. You guys have seen the videos. As I've walked through the different modifications, we started out with the Stage 1, the Bassani exhaust system, and the Stage 1 air cleaner, and then I went with the Power Vision that flush mounted into the fairing. From that point, we went with the 510 cams, just on a stock motor, low compression, stock 88-inch motor. And then we have now moved from that up to a big bore kit with headwork designed to match the cams and the compression ratio that we have on the engine itself. So I want to walk you through what has happened in this build. Everything did not go as planned. We put the thing together. I went out, I had it dyno tuned. It put out like 105 foot-pounds of torque, about 94 horsepower. On the motor, I had that done. I did a few break-in miles. It was time to run to Sturgis. I want to go to the FXR and Dyna Mixer that they do at Sturgis every year. I like looking at the bikes, seeing what different guys are doing. It was over a quart of oil during that 1,000-mile trip, so I realized that I had some issues with this motor and it wasn't healthy as it should be. So when I got back, I called the company I dealt with. What I've done, as you guys know, I research everything. I research for days and days and days, weeks. I do more research time on what I want to do to the motorcycle than I actually spend time doing it to the motorcycle. But there's so many people out there that are experts online that really don't know anything about what they're talking about, that I like to research things out and find out who's there. And the people that are most recommended online sometimes are not the best people to go to have your work done. And for me, what I found was somebody that was not online, was not on the forums, but every now and then I would hear their name mentioned, and the results always look good when I send a dyno chart of them. And then I found people that used to use them and now have gone into business for themselves. And I started shooting emails to those guys. And I said, what do you know about this company, AMS? If you guys used them, what's your opinion? What do you think about them? And even people that are now running their own company said they are super guys to work with. They won't lead you astray. They won't make you buy stuff you don't need to buy. They're honest people. And based on that, I wanted to just go check them out. Now I went around and I've checked out a lot of people from one end of the U.S. to the other end, and some of them are as big a hacks as I am, and I really don't want them doing the machine work on my parts in order to get the performance that I want out of them. I need a stand-up shop that will still be there tomorrow. And so I went to check these guys out. Man, they got a full machine shop in there, and they've been doing this stuff, third generation. They started in the 70s. They started with Harley, or they started in the 60s. With Volkswagens. They started in the 70s with Harleys, and they're still working on Harley engines. Among all the new modern V8s and dual overhead cam V8s, they're on top of their game when it comes to the performance market, and they have their own CNC machine there. So their heads, they've got a port design that they've developed over the years, working on Harleys for 40 plus years now. What they have is a head design that they like, so they went and digitized it, and they have their own CNC machine to reproduce that for them now. What's interesting is most of these guys that have CNC heads, it may be their port design, but they're sending them out to somebody else to have them digitized and then to have them done. And this guy, I was impressed that he had his own CNC machine there. It's a 5-axis machine. Not only that, but he does cam plates and stuff as well. Anyway, I decided to go with him. He had some tricks I'd never heard of on the cam plate, where he machine grooves for O-rings, so you have no oil loss, none of the oil jets are spraying. And he showed me how these cam plates warp, even the billet ones that you buy that you spend several $100s on aftermarket to put in here. That's a better cam plate. Even after they've gone through several heat cycles, those same ones warp anyway, so you need the O-rings to seal. And once you get that cam plate sealed up tight with O-rings, then you get the oil pressure and the oil volume that you really need. So they explained all that to me, and the thing was, it's $50 to have it done. So I sent them out my cam plate, put everything together. The engine sounded good, no noises, everything was smooth. Threw it on a dyno, They tuned it to 105 foot-pounds of torque and 94 horsepower. I was pretty happy with that. I was really hoping for a little bit more, but you know, that's really good because this is a 96-inch motor. So it's an 88-inch, 4-inch stroke. We bored it out to be a 96-inch. So some people would call that a 96-inch all bore, not to be confused with a 2007 96 cubic inch, which is a stroke motor from Harley. But once I got all that done, I had enough time to get some break-in miles done and such, and by the time that I was ready to do a trip on it, I had one day to get to Sturgis in time for the FXR and Dyna mixer. So that's what I did. I shot up there, did 1,000 miles in one day in order to be able to make it to the Dyna mixer. The important thing about that is this bike used over a quart of oil in that 1,000 miles, and I realized that the bike wasn't healthy. Once I got home, I called AMS and said, hey guys, here's what's going on with the motor. I was hoping they would give me some advice on what to do. I knew that I was going to pay to have something fixed on the motor because it just wasn't right. Well, they told me to do a compression test, and then they wanted me to do a leak down test. Compression showed 160 pounds on the front cylinder and like 162 or 3 on the rear cylinder. So for all practical purposes, they were the same pressure front to rear. And in the leak down test showed a 40% leak down. They said, you have problems, take the motor apart and send it to us. You know, not being a man of a lot of means, I wanted to know how much that was going to cost. And I said, so what is all this telling me? What I need to be prepared for? And they said, well, we'll call you and let you know what we find wrong with it when we get it. And I said, yeah, but financially, what is this going to cost me? And they said, oh, money-wise, it's not going to cost you anything. You've not had this motor a year. We have a year warranty. Our fault, your fault, the tuner's fault, it doesn't matter. We're going to cover you. I'm like, man, I really appreciate that. So I was really blown away, and I didn't honestly believe that was what it was going to do. I figured there was going to be several costs, you know, just maybe even just their cost on the parts that they needed to replace, you know, but some cost. But you never know, you know, with people when they say they're going to take care of you, what that really means. So I went through and shipped it out to them. They called me 3 days later. It was my fault. I'd reversed the compression ring and the oil ring. On all the other Harleys I've built, the rings, the compression ring had a dot on it, and the dot always went to the top. On this motor and the rings that they used, the compression ring was a plain ring and didn't have a dot on it, and I got it swapped with the oil ring. So it was completely my fault on the motor, but they still covered me. Everything was coated in carbon because, you know, all those miles burning oil. They bead blasted everything. They went ahead and took the heads apart, and they went in and replaced all the valve stem seals. They recoated the exhaust system, which is one of their trademarks. They recoated the exhaust system with ceramic coating to keep the heat down and keep the oil temperatures down. Replaced the valve stem seals, and just to double check all of their work, they went out and they might inspect everything out. They went ahead and CC'd the heads to make sure they were right and they were spot on at 80 cc's. They went in and they checked the bore alignment to the top of the piston alignment to make sure everything was flush and flat and everything was good there. So they did a tremendous amount of work and shipped it back to me. Well, when they called me and told me it was ready to ship back, I was ready to pay for the shipping to get back to me. You know, it should be like 50, 60 bucks for all of these parts as heavy as they are. And he said, oh, don't worry about the shipping, John. It's on us. I didn't know what to say. I'd never had any company that I'd ever bought stuff from that treated me that good. In today's time and age, as you guys that work on motors, y'all know this stuff. If something went wrong with this motor, if it was obviously my fault. So I should have had to pay for a new set of rings, the new valve stem gaskets or the valve stem seals, and the time it took to bead blast everything and get everything ready to go. I should have had to pay for all of that because it was my fault. But even if it wouldn't have been my fault, most of the places I dealt with would have blamed it on the tune. They'd have blamed it on something else. And it's never anybody's fault. So the warranties you get from 99% of the companies out there aren't as good as the website that they're wrote on. So for them to stand behind this product, man, that they've guaranteed my business for the future, and that I'm going to tell people about automotive machine services out of Claiborne, Texas, which is just south of Fort Worth. These guys are top notch. They call their kit high torque pork. Now that I've got this thing and I'm pulling her back together, we're going to end back up. Instead of 160 pounds of pressure, we'll end up with 190 pounds of pressure. The compression will be right. Everything will be set up good. We'll probably be around, I would assume, like a 98 horsepower mark once we get all this stuff done. But the throttle response and the low end torque will improve drastically over where I was before, burning all that oil and having such a low compression on the motor. So if you're in the market for having any kind of machine work done for your Harley, I recommend AMS. They're going to put out the numbers that they say they're going to put out, and they're going to stand behind their product. Their 1-year warranty is a real warranty. They're going to stand behind it. And even if it's your fault, they're still going to help you out. So I appreciate who they are as a business standpoint. No wonder they've been in business since the 60s with that kind of a customer service and that kind of outlook in dealing with people. And it means a lot to me as just a guy who is at home and he builds a motor every now and then. It's probably been 5 years since I've been on a Harley motor. So 5 or 6 years since I built one. So for me, just being out here in the shop, doing stuff myself, doing my own work because I enjoy working with my hands and working on engines and motors and stuff, it meant a lot to me that they were going to go in and take care of me like that. They didn't even charge me for the gaskets. I had to have a whole new top-end gasket set, had to have a 30 thousandths head gasket, which didn't come in that kit, so that had to be separate. And they took care of the lock, stock, barrel, everything for me. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm looking forward to see how this thing runs now that the compression is going to be up and be right on this motorcycle, because it didn't run bad before other than burning a lot of oil. So I'll give you another installment later once I get the motor button back up and everything's ready to go. I kind of rushed this video because I've got the article coming out. I want to send a link for this video in the article that I wrote about AMS. If you guys have got any questions about what we've gone through or about AMS, shoot me something in the comments. If you like the material, go ahead and click subscribe. We'll do the next installment. I'll try to get a dyno chart for you. I'm going to switch tuners. I've been using this Power Vision. I want to give the Thunder Max a try, see how that thing is going to work on this motorcycle and tuning it in. And that way in the future when I change parts in and out, if I decide to change exhaust or something like that, I don't have to go and spend for another dyno tune anymore. Nowadays, a lot of guys are getting $500 a pop on a dyno tune, which gets really expensive quick. So appreciate you guys tuning in and checking this out. I'll holler at you later.